Hey, what's up everybody? Rob Swanson here. Welcome to this video where I'm going to talk to you about how to invest in real estate. And I'm going to use the framework and I'm going to use the exact process that I taught my own daughter how to think about, get the mindset for, and understand evaluating a real estate investment deal. A little bit of context and we're going to jump right into the content. My kids have grown up with my wife and I talking about, driving them around to all of their functions, sitting around the dinner table, on vacation. My wife and I talk about real estate investing, owning and running a business, buying and selling companies, creating cash flow, building wealth, creating financial freedom. And so my kids have been exposed to these conversations for years, but it wasn't until my oldest daughter was about ready to graduate high school and this reality struck her that said, you know what, I'm not going to be hearing all of these conversations anymore. I'm not going to be exposed to this. So one day she says to me, hey, Dad, will you teach me how to invest in real estate? And I said, absolutely. Go grab a blank piece of paper off the printer, grab a pen, and meet me in the kitchen. So she met me in the kitchen and we sat down and I proceeded to lay out a framework, real estate investing 101, but it's the basics that I had to figure out for years that I didn't understand when I first got started. And I spent the next hour with her on lesson number 1, which is what you're going to be exposed to right now: how to invest in real estate, how to evaluate a deal, how to analyze a deal, how to think about a deal, how to, the difference between a short-term and a long-term deal, all these things that we're going to dive into. Because I remember one of the first properties that I was ever exposed to as a brand new real estate investor nearly 20 years ago, a property here in Aurora, Colorado on Espinosa Drive. I walked into the house, I walked around, I had a notepad and a piece of paper, and I had no idea how to look at it, analyze it, estimate repairs. I had no starting point basis for what I should be doing. And that is what I'm going to solve for you today, exactly like I solved it for my daughter. So let's cut over to the presentation right now and keep this whole thing going. Check this out. What you are about to see is the single sheet of paper and how I taught my 19-year-old daughter to invest in real estate. And here it is. What you are looking at right now is the single sheet of paper that when I asked her to go grab a blank sheet of paper, grab a pen, this is what we created. Now, to me, I understand everything that is on here. As you sit here and look at it, it's going to be a garbled mess because I like to teach while scribbling and chicken scratching. And so here's what I decided to do. I decided to take this presentation, this single sheet of paper, and create a presentation that I can walk you through. So let's dive into it because the basics, okay, what I showed my daughter right here, I'm going to walk you through in a step-by-step presentation as we go over the next couple of minutes. So real estate investments are one of two things. They're either short-term real estate investments, which is like a fix and flip. I'm going to buy it, I'm going to fix it up, and I'm going to sell it as fast as I can. It's a short-term deal. This is typically done by somebody who calls themselves a rehabber. So people in the world, when you think about a real estate investor, you think of a rehabber or a fix and flipper. A rehabber's decisions are value-based, and so they make their investment decisions based on the value of a property. And we're going to dive into this and explain this as we go, but I want you to understand the basics. There's a left and a right. There's a black and a white. There's a right side, left side to real estate investments. A rehabber, a fix and flip investor, a short-term investment is all about buying cheap. You've got to buy cheap because you don't have market time, you don't have income for the property. It's all about the equity that you can buy cheap, sell, and turn into cash, selling it at a higher price. The alternative is what is known as a long-term investment. Now, this is a buy and hold, something that you're going to buy, fix up, and then rent out long-term for income. The person that does this is known as a landlord. Here's the landlord's decision-making process. It's all about the income. They make income-based decisions, and the key to being a successful rental property buy and hold long-term investor is to properly account for your operating costs. Now we're going to dive into this and break down the numbers. So let's look at and understand first the difference between value and price. Value, to quote Warren Buffett, is what you buy, and price is what you pay. Value is what you buy, and price is what you pay. So, in real estate investing, there's this term that people talk about. It's the ARV, the after repaired value. Now, the after repaired value of a property is the fixed up value of a house. It's what you can sell for quickly on a short-term fix and flip. The after repaired value of a property is what you can sell for quickly on a short-term fix and flip. It's also what you can get an appraisal for. It's what the appraised value will come in at for a long-term buy and hold. So the ARV, the after repaired value, has relevance whether you're doing a short-term fix and flip or a long-term buy and hold. It's the after repaired value. So if you bought a property that was distressed, fixed it up to today's market conditions for whatever neighborhood it's in, what is it worth? That's the after repaired value. Now, then you have the as-is value, and this is where so many people, I believe, go wrong. And I'm going to flip you back here, and we're going to talk about this for a minute, because the as-is value is the after repaired value minus the cost of repairs. It's very simple. It's the after repaired value minus the cost of repairs. And let's go back and look at this a minute, because here's your formula. The after repaired value minus the cost of repairs dollar for dollar is the as-is value. Now, ideally, this is what a real estate agent is going to list a property for on the MLS, on the open market, and it's what a seller would ask for their property in a retail environment. So the as-is value is often equal to the list price. Now, below that as-is value and or the list price is your maximum offer price. Now, I want you to notice something here. There are a couple of different things that we're talking about. We're talking about the after repaired value and the as-is value. Those are values. That's the value. That's what it's worth. Everything else is a price. There's the seller's asking price. There's the maximum offer price. It's the price you can pay in order to buy the value. So there's value and there's price. The thing that most people mistake all the time is they get stuck on this idea of the seller's asking price, especially if it's a listed property. They look at a listed property and it's listed for X, and they don't want to pay more than the seller's asking price. Well, guess what? If the as-is value and the seller's listed or asking price are different, the seller's asking price has no bearing whatsoever on what you can pay to still make it a good real estate investment. So let's go back over here and take a look at this. Then you have your maximum offer price, and finally you have what's known as the wholesale offer price. So if you're working with a real estate investor, if you're working with a turnkey operator, somebody that is finding, packaging, negotiating, and putting good deals together and then selling them to you, your maximum offer price is exactly that, your maximum offer price. They're going to buy it below what you could pay to make it a good real estate investment, and that's how they're going to create their profit margin. They're in the business, a wholesale company is in the business of buying below market value and reselling it to an investor looking for a certain profit margin or a certain return on investment. Now, there are three critical numbers that you need to know to successfully invest in real estate. You've probably figured out what they are. Number one, what is the property worth fixed up? What is the ARV, the after repaired value? Number two, what will it cost to get the property fixed up? And number three, how much income will the property produce after it's fixed up? If you can understand these three numbers, if you can understand and figure out how to determine these three numbers, whether you're looking at a single family house, a duplex, a triplex, a fourplex, an apartment building, a piece of commercial real estate, a storage unit, if you can answer those three questions, what's the property worth fixed up? What is its value? Number two, how much is it going to cost me to get it fixed up? And number three, what is the income that this property will produce after it's fixed up? You've answered the only three questions that you need to answer to become a successful real estate investor. Now, if we keep going through this, I want you to see that a fixed up property then is always your anchor. It's always the point that you go to in order to make sure that you've got the ability to back into everything else. You never try to say, well, what is it worth today? The big mistake that I made on Espinosa Drive years ago is I walked into the property and I tried to determine what the property was worth today as I'm looking at it. That's irrelevant. It doesn't matter. And I'll tell you what that number is. It's the improved value, the fixed up value, minus the cost of repairs. That is the as-is value. What is it worth today in its as-is condition is the fixed up value minus the cost of repairs on a dollar for dollar basis. That's the as-is value. And in a retail environment, that should equal the list price. Now, oftentimes, sellers and listing agents make mistakes on their selling or asking price. And that creates opportunities for real estate investors. Now, as we consider this, and if we know that it's all about the improved value, the cost of repairs, and that as-is value should be the list or target price that a seller is asking, and that has zero bearing, no bearing whatsoever on what you can pay, because remember, you have to create profit. You have to account for your costs. You have to account for all of the things that go into being a successful real estate investor, which means you need to know condition of the property. Now, this matters, and it comes into play when you start to ask yourself, what is the condition of the property, and am I comparing apples to apples? If I'm looking at a 3-bedroom, 1-bath house here, how do I figure out the value? Well, the way you do that is you have to look at other similar properties in an area, and that creates and establishes, and it becomes your comps, your comparables. And so you're going to comp similar properties, 3-bedroom, 1-bath, in a certain area around value, and you're going to comp similar properties, 3-bedroom, 1-bath, in an area for rents to figure out the income. Now, what I do is I break the condition of a property into a couple of different buckets. Now, these are highly scientific categories. The first one is new construction. Whatever the current market, brand new, on the market condition is of a property, that is the highest value you're going to get is new construction. Number two is a fixed up retail property. So this is something that's a fix and flip. This is something that a rehabber would buy, renovate, and then put back on the market to resell. That's a fixed up retail. Number three is a property that's livable and clean. It hasn't been rehabbed. It hasn't been brought up to current full fix and flip standards, but it's a livable property and it's clean. It's good. It is what is mostly available for sale out on the regular retail, multiple listing service, real estate agent market, are properties that are in livable and clean condition. Now below that, We start to get into livable but needs work. Maybe it's completely outdated. It hasn't been fixed up since the 1970s. Maybe there's been vandalism from a tenant, or there's been vandalism from something, right? So livable, but it definitely needs work. Number 5 is a total beater. A total beater is something that it needs a full renovation. It's not livable. You can't live in it as is today. The furnace doesn't work. The electrical is messed up. It's completely trashed. The carpet's all been ripped out. The kitchen is demolished. All of those things. We buy a lot of vacant and abandoned properties that are total beaters. We buy a lot of properties from banks, REO properties that are total beaters. A total beater is what we look for. How do you know you're a real estate investor? You know you're a real estate investor when you walk through the front door of a property, or you pry away the boarded up front door and you step into the entryway and you take a nice big whiff, and the smell of cat urine makes you smile. Because that tells you that this total beater is going to be somebody's nemesis, and they don't want it. They want you to deal with it. And number 6 is something that's an insurance or a total salvage property, something that just needs to be scraped, that just needs to be the value of the land, or based on an insurance policy payout because of a fire damage or something along those lines. These are the categories that I break condition into, and the only reason I'm pointing these out to you is as you estimate and look at comparables, it's all about understanding comparing apples to apples. You cannot compare a total beater to a fixed up retail and think that you're comparing apples to apples. You have to say, hey, if this total beater was fixed up, what would it be worth? And that's what you do to figure out its after repaired value. You look at the fixed up retail properties that have sold in the area. You look at the fixed up retail properties that are for rent in the area. That helps you determine what's it worth fixed up and how much income will it produce. Now, if we take that then and we start to use the idea of condition to estimate value and income from the comps, we have to kind of say to ourselves, well, what are comps? How do I compare one house to another? What constitutes a good comparison? Well, I'm going to just break this down for you. And it's, as we just talked about, properties of like condition. So properties that are similar to themselves. Properties of like size. Usually I try to go plus or minus about 10% in the size of a property. So if I have a 1,200 square foot house, I'm going to probably look for comparables, comps, that are down to maybe as low as 950 square feet on up to maybe about 1,400 square feet. Somewhere in that range, 900 to 1,400 on a 1,200 square foot house, plus or minus around 10%. Because the reality is, determining the value of a property, determining the income of a property is as much an art as it is a science. You're never going to say, well, it's exactly worth this dollar amount. What you're going to be able to say is it's about this. We're also going to be looking for properties of like age. Now, what this usually means is that depending on where you're at in the country, you're going to be comparing properties that are in certain neighborhoods. And a lot of times there becomes some challenges in certain neighborhoods, comparing a 1920s house to a property that you are looking at that's 1970s, right? And you just have to make some estimated adjustments based on what are you seeing based on age. Next is properties of like construction, so block houses or brick houses or frame-built houses, 2 stories, single stories, split levels. These are the types of things that I'm talking about when I'm talking about like construction. And then down to what I call the BBBG formula. And what that means is bedrooms, bathrooms, basement, and garage. You want to try to compare as best you can properties that have the same number of bedrooms and the same number of bathrooms and the same and a basement or not a basement and a garage, a single store, a single car, a double car, a three car, detached garage, attached garage, a carport, or street side parking. Like, these things matter and they come into place. And so as you're trying to compare apples to apples, this is the stuff that you're trying to do. When you do this, you can actually say, okay, I'm getting a good sense of, well, I'm looking at a 3-bedroom, 1-bath house that's 1,000 square feet, but I see a 2-bedroom, 1-bath over here that's about 800 square feet, and it's priced a little bit lower. And then I see 4 of those 2-bedroom, 1-bath houses that are priced a little bit lower. So that starts to give you an idea that says, okay, well, it's not going to be worth any less than that. And so now you start to say, well, do I see 3-bedroom, 1-baths in the area that have sold and or are being rented out? And what are they being rented for? What are they being sold for? And you start to play this comparison game, and you zero in on the answer you feel comfortable with. Now, let's look then at what your maximum allowable offer means to you. Okay. The MAO, that maximum allowable offer, this is the offer price that you can pay, and calculating your maximum allowable offer requires that you know how much net profit you want to earn for selling a fix and flip. If you were to buy it cheap, your buy price, your maximum allowable offer price that you won't go over, and you pay all of your costs, and you sell it full retail, how much minimum profit do you want to make? A lot of real estate investors set minimum profit thresholds of $15,000 or $20,000 or $40,000 on a fix and flip, depending on the price point that you're doing business in. And that's what establishes the formula that says, here's my maximum allowable offer. And I'm going to walk you through that in just a moment here. I'm going to take you through step by step how to do that right on the screen. Now, as a buy and hold investor, a landlord, somebody looking to earn a return on your money or your investment, you're looking for cash flow, an annualized return, 8%, 10%, 15%. Now, the less work you have to do to the property, the more passive you are, the lower generally your return is going to be. And the reason I say that is because it probably means that somebody else has already gone through most of the hard work to get a property fixed up and in good condition. So if you don't want to do the work, you're going to get a little bit lower ROI than if you were to say, I want to be an active investor and I want 15% on my money or 17% on my money or 12% on my money, because I'm not just getting paid for the investment of the capital. I want to get paid for the investment of my time, energy, effort, and knowledge as well too. And so these are the two things that go into this. So let's break this down now and take a look at it. Now, one of the things that I want to say to you right here is, if you're going through this and this is helpful to you and you're understanding it, or even if you have questions, I want to throw out a phone number that you can send a text message into or phone call, and just call me and let's rap about this, because I do a podcast on a weekly basis called The Real Freedom Show, and I love taking audience questions and interactions and Q&As and answering them on that podcast show. And so go ahead, and the number is 720-605-6265. And yes, I'm looking at my number right there so that I can remember it and tell you the right number. 720-605-6265. 720-605-6265. And the reason, again, I'm putting this out there is, if you have questions about anything that I'm teaching you here, go ask the question and let me answer it on an upcoming podcast show. I think you get a ton of value out of this. Let's jump back and let me show you how these numbers shake out. Okay, so now we're looking at a short-term fix and flip analysis first. And the first thing that you try to determine on a short-term fix and flip is the after repaired value, the ARV. This is what the property will sell for quickly after you fix it up. The most important number as a fix and flip investor is to get the ARV right. If you get the ARV right, you're going to win. Then you want to ask yourself the question, what is it going to cost me to fix it up? What are my fix-up costs? And in this example, we're going to say $20,000. Now, $20,000, $100,000 ARV minus $20,000 would give you an $80,000 as-is value, that AIV. That should equal a seller's list or asking price in the open retail market. That's generally how I think about it. And that's why it doesn't have any bearing on what you're willing to pay. Because you're not a retail buyer. You're a buyer that is going to get paid and earn money by buying below value, below market value. Now, in addition to the cost of fix-up, you also have closing costs when you buy. Okay, so when you buy the property, you're going to have about 1% or 1.5% roughly, depending on how you purchase, in closing costs, okay? And so you're also going to have holding costs, because from the time you buy the property and you start paying on your cost of money, and you start paying utilities, and you start paying water, and you start paying for these various things, there are going to be some holding costs that add up and eat into your potential profit. So you've got to account for the holding costs. You've got to account then for the cost of sale, because now you've bought it cheap, you fixed it up, and you're going to sell it for $100,000. And let's say that you hire a real estate agent and they list the property and they're going to get paid 6%, 3% to the buyer's agent and 3% to the seller's agent. And so that's going to come out of your proceeds. They're going to get paid. You don't pay them up front. They're going to get paid out of the proceeds. But a good rule of thumb is 6 to 9% cost of sale, what it's going to cost you in closing costs, real estate commissions, and other various costs as the seller to sell a property. Then your investor's target profit. How much money do you want to make as the investor for doing all of this? And in this example, I'm just going to say you want to make a minimum of $20,000. If you want to make a minimum of $20,000, you start with your ARV, subtract out your $20,000 in fix-up cost, your $1,500 in closing costs when you purchase, your $4,350 in holding costs and cost of money, $9,000 in selling costs or cost of sale, and you got to back out, subtract out your $20,000 in profit, which means that your maximum allowable purchase price on this deal would be $45,150. That's the most you could pay if you were going to do a short-term fix and flip on this and wanted to make $20,000. Okay? Now, I'm going to be real with you. We didn't account for a contingency. On a fix and flip, I'm going to go in and I'm going to put a 10% contingency on this. Okay? We didn't account for what if something goes wrong. These are just pure fact-driven straight numbers. Okay? $45,150. So if I'm a wholesaler then and I want to go package this deal up and sell it to a rehabber, if I'm the guy that figures out how to go find these deals and does the lead generation, I'm going to get paid for that. And so I'm going to go find this deal, package it up, and I'm going to either close it on it myself or I'm going to sell it to another investor. I'm going to probably offer my wholesale price. My wholesale offer price is probably $35,000. And so I'm going to turn around and I'm going to sell it to the rehabber for $45,000. For me, finding the deal, putting it together, negotiating it, getting it under contract, and then reselling a cheap price to a rehabber, I'm going to make about $10,000. The rehabber is going to go do the work, and in 60, 90, 120 days is going to make $20,000. So the key is you've got to leave enough meat on the bone and know, depending on where you sit in this equation, are you the passive guy or the fix and flip, the rehabber that says, I don't have all of the systems to go find these good deals. I want a wholesaler to bring them to me so that I can go make my money and keep focused on the things that I do, which is rehabbing houses, making sure my financing is in place, keeping my holding costs down, and getting stuff done as fast as possible. Now let's jump over to the long-term buy and hold, because now we're talking about, I want you to notice that the first thing we look at here is no longer the ARV. It's not the fixed up value, it's now rents. And we're assuming here that we're looking at this deal as a 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath with a basement and a 1-car garage. Okay, I'm running these numbers and I'm assuming that the same deal is a fix and flip deal as the same deal is a long-term buy and hold. So the first question I ask when I'm looking at a buy and hold is, what will it rent for? What are the gross rents? Now, the gross rents here being $700 a month equals $8,400 a year. So that's what a tenant is going to pay you monthly and annually if they rent the property out from you for an entire year. Now, here's the key to this. Remember I said the key to a buy and hold analysis is to properly estimate and analyze your operating costs. So your operating costs on a single family house are generally between 30, 35, sometimes 40%, depending on if you go outsource to a bad manager, if you don't know how to manage it very well yourself. If you have a good management operator, if you have somebody that is good at what they do, 30 to 35% estimate of total operating costs of rent is a pretty fair number. When we do deal analysis in my real estate investing business, 30 to 35% is the number when we run the actual numbers, because operating costs are your taxes, insurance, vacancy cost, maintenance, and management. Okay? It's taxes, insurance, vacancy, maintenance, and management. Those are the things that go into calculating your operating costs. So your net operating income is your gross annual income minus your operating costs, which gives you $5,880 a year. That is your net operating income. So $700 in rent equals $8,400 a year in gross annual income minus the $2,520 a year operating costs equals $5,880 in net operating income. That is the amount of money, $5,880, that you put into your pocket at the end of the year on this house. So here's the question then. How much of a return do you want to make on your money? And I'm just going to use, for simple math, 10%. You want to make 10% on your money. If you were to pay cash for the property, you want to buy what is known as a 10 cap. You want to make 10% on your money if you paid cash. So here's how we do it. We take the $5,880 divided by 0.1. That gives you an all-in maximum of $58,800. If you buy it, fix it up, and are there, $58,800 is the maximum that you want to be in to earn 10% on your money from the income of the property. Now, from that maximum all-in number, then you have to start to subtract out your holding costs, okay? There's a holding time for you to rehab and repair even a rental property. So I just used the exact same holding costs that we had over on the fix and flip side to just keep the math easy. You also have to subtract out your fix-up costs. So a rental rehab is typically cheaper than a fix and flip rehab. So in this case, we're going to say that our rental rehab is $15,000. So we're going to take our $58,800 minus $4,350 minus $15,000, and that gives us our maximum allowable offer on this of $39,450. That's the maximum that you would pay on this property to earn a 10% return on your money if you paid cash. So you're going to pay $39,450, then you're going to have your $4,350 in holding costs, then you're going to have your $15,000 in fix-up. So you're going to be all in. Your total cash invested is going to be less than $60,000. That's what's going to get you to a 10% annualized return on your money. Now, again, as a wholesaler, if you're the guy or gal that's the active investor putting this deal together, you need to understand and know, what does the investor that wants this deal as a rehabber or as a landlord want? And what they want is what I showed you here, the MAO. They want a minimum on the fix and flip of $20,000 profit, or they want a minimum 10% annualized return for the buy and hold. So then you're going to just subtract out and buy it cheaper than that maximum, and that's your wholesale price. That's how you get down to these numbers. So I hope this is making sense to you guys, where you can now see the difference between a short-term analysis and a long-term analysis, a fix and flip, a buy and hold, and exactly how to run those numbers. Because what people will tell you all the time is that it's a simple formula. It's a formula of after repaired value minus times 65% minus the cost of repairs. Well, let's do that for some fun math here real quick. I'll just pull up my phone and we'll do this on the fix and flip analysis. Let's say our $100,000 ARV, and let's say that we multiply it times 0.65. That gets us down to $65,000, and our fix-up cost is $20,000 minus our repair cost, 20. Look at that. $45,000. Look at that right there. $45,150. Why does that formula work? That formula works because that's the actual real math in this deal. Now, what you're going to find is that when you do your numbers right and you estimate the fixed up improved value of the house properly, when you estimate the rent of the house properly, and you estimate the repair cost of the house properly, whereas the repair cost on a fix and flip is almost always more than the repair cost on a buy and hold. When you do that, you're going to find that sometimes you have to buy significantly cheaper for a fix and flip. You can find that landlords will pay more. Sometimes it's flip-flopped. It moves around. It's a moving target. But when you have the numbers like I just laid out right here, and you can just walk through these and fill in the blanks, you can actually get to the real numbers on any deal at any time. And that makes real estate investing fun, because you now have the knowledge, you know how to do it, you know how to analyze a deal, and you can make intelligent decisions. So here's what I want you to do right now. Go to freedomsoft.com/worksheet. That's freedomsoft.com/worksheet, and download my step-by-step deal analysis worksheets to guide you through the process of analyzing any real estate investment deal. You'll have a simple tool to help you determine the best strategy for every deal and whether you should expect to fix and flip or buy and hold. On that page, I've also posted a VIP invitation to a training I'm hosting where I'll reveal my go-to and number one source of motivated seller leads. And I'll show you step-by-step how you can tap in and get hundreds of motivated seller leads in under 9 minutes. So do it right now. Go to freedomsoft.com/worksheet, download your copy today, and claim your VIP seat to copy my proven Get Leads formula. This is Rob Swanson. I hope this was helpful. I hope you got a ton of value out of this. See you in the next one. Bye-bye.